we're so grateful for you, and I am excited to give people a front row seat into the incredible work that you're doing with Instagram. And for those that aren't following Kelly, if you want to play along at home today, Kelly, tell them your handle, if you will.
Yeah, so my handle is Home on a Nashville Hill, not to be confused with Home on an Asheville Hill, or get a lot of questions, but Home on a Nashville Hill. And I think a lot of people ask me, how did I come up with that? Because I know that like everybody's trying to figure out what is the perfect handle for your account. And while it's important, it doesn't matter all that much. My handle started about 2.5 years ago when we were building and we had a lot on a hill. And I started the account just to try to get some home inspiration. It turned out that house didn't work out. We sold the hill lot. We're on a flat lot now, but it didn't make sense to change things because I had already generated a following. And I spent a lot of time talking with Andrea Woodard when I transitioned over to real estate about changing it. And there was a lot of back and forth. Should it be my name? Should we keep it what it was? And ultimately I decided to keep it what it was. My handle is still Home on a Nashville Hill, but right underneath it has my name and the fact that I'm a realtor. And so far people seem to be able to find me. Yeah, there you go. So, I'm still, realtor. We're still following our custom home journey, and I'm a real estate. So this whole intro thing is super important because I think all of you know Instagram right now is functioning as a Google search. How many people, you go onto Instagram, you want to find metal roofs, you type in metal roofs and things start popping up. So, people look for Nashville realtors. I've got Nashville in the name, I've got my name, and I've got realtor. So I just try to make myself a little bit more searchable that way.
Okay. Sweet. Well, this is a great place for us to start. And as I said, we want this to be interactive today. So feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. Officially, this is Kelly Ladwig. Kelly, how long have you been with Village?
I have been with Village for about 18 months, since last May.
Okay.
And
go ahead. No, go ahead.
New to real estate at that time. A little background, I'd always wanted to get into real estate. I grew up with my parents going to, open houses on the weekend. My parents built several homes. I've always been fascinated. Thought about doing it in my 20s and really wanted to get my license. But I think as a lot of us know, life gets in the way and you have a job and responsibilities, and the thought of leaving a steady paycheck to do real estate was a little frightening. Right before my 50th birthday, I decided I needed to get my license, which I did. And again, I put off jumping in full time because we were getting ready to build a house and my finance guy said, don't quit your job. And then it was decided for me last March during COVID. I lost my job. And the same day I lost my job, Andrea called me up and said, hey, when are you ready to start doing real estate? So things worked out perfectly, and then joined last May and haven't looked back.
Best firing ever happened, right?
You know what? I think lots of times you look at what happens for you instead of to you. And it was the push I needed.
Yeah, we all need that. And I'm so grateful again. Hopefully today this will be a push for some of you that have either been using Instagram or considering or how you're using Instagram, because I think you're going to find some pretty interesting things about this. So Kelly, tell us about how you, what would you recommend for someone getting started? And then we'll dig into some things that you've done on your page. If you want, I'm happy to continue to share a screen to show some things if you'd like while you're clicking through, but tell us how you started. And like you said, some of those considerations of, I think as you mentioned, if those that just jumped on here, the name isn't as important as we sometimes think, right?
Yeah, I spent a long time agonizing over stuff, and people get to know you, right? And I think, for anybody that's considering doing Instagram or whatever your social media niche is, and I'm going to talk about Instagram because that's where I focus most of my energy. But for you, it could be Facebook, it could be Snapchat, it could be TikTok. They're all great social platforms. And the goal of all of them is pretty much the same. And that is starting a conversation engaging people, and providing value. And you can do that anywhere. I do find it's difficult to do it well in all platforms,
Yeah.
unless you have somebody who's doing it for you. And for me, I had to pick, and Instagram is kind of where I went.
I love it.
You know, but starting, like, when I was really afraid to get on Instagram, like, I don't have anything to say. I don't know what I'd type. I don't know what I'd share. So I spent some time just really studying accounts that I like to follow. I mean, and that's a great way to start. I mean, ask yourself, what are your favorite accounts? What do you like about them? What information are they bringing to the table? For me at the time, I started following a lot of home design accounts because I was getting ready to design a house. And I found a ton of inspiration that helped me design the house. And as I started sharing that, I started sharing other people's work and reaching out to them. I sent DMs all the time, talking to people, asking them. They got to know me. And then as my build started, I started talking about what was happening. And I really quickly realized there wasn't a lot of information out there for people building. You know, in terms of, this is why you pour footers. This is what this part of the footer is. This is why you build the blocks up. This is, the more I started doing that, the more positive feedback I started getting.
Right.
So it's really about finding a niche. And
you leveraged your home build, you know, because
Yes.
as we said, like, home on an Asheville hill. So I'll hark a story of somebody that I rarely interact with, but I've never forgot this person's email address. And it's jack@wipeyourfeet.net. Does anybody know whose email that is? For us old dogs out there, that is Jack Miller with Parks. He broke the rule of having a .net, but wipeyourfeet.net. Like, I don't know. I've never forgot that dude is wipeyourfeet.net. And I think forever you will be known as home on an Asheville hill. And so hopefully you don't move from Nashville. So one of the things
right?
I took into consideration when I named my team Radius Residential was not including Nashville in the name. But there's some pros and cons to that, right? Like, I believe the more simple and straightforward you can deliver what it is you are or you're doing, the better off. So, like, I sell real estate Nashville. It's good to have Nashville in there. And Nashville's obviously a hot spot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, if I was starting today, let's face it, my name would probably be something much different.
Sure.
But it's not. And the hassle of changing it and the potential to lose, you know, the traction that I had wasn't worth it. But I mean, I think the really big thing is you want to make sure that your name is in there under it, even if you don't use your name in the headline. It's super important to have your name in there someplace. So if somebody's searching, they can figure it out. Now, I had somebody oh, hey, Cam, he wanted to know, how come I put blogger instead of real estate?
Yeah.
I've been a blogger. I have blogger in there for the simple reason that I've leveraged this platform for my home build, and there's some things that I need to take care of in terms of fulfilling some partnerships that I have. So that's why it stayed blogger. Will it change to real estate agent at some point? Absolutely.
Got it. Love it. So it's easy for us to get lost in the weeds of how successful you've been with all these followers, but there was a day where you only had 3. And tell us about, and I can reference some clicks in here and things, because you've been very intentional about how you treated this medium. And I want people to understand kind of what your process and your intentionality was about it. Could you share more about that?
Yeah, like I said, when I started, I became a student of Instagram, and it kind of became a challenge to me to try to figure out the system. So I spent a lot of time looking at accounts that were doing things well. A lot of accounts that I was gravitating towards. You know, two and a half years ago, I started in March 2019. You didn't have a lot of home accounts that were sharing other people's homes. You didn't have a lot of realtors sharing other people's homes, but there were a couple out there. Jet Set Farmhouse was one of them. They were building a house, and she was just starting to take people along on the journey. And I started watching what she was doing. And then you start trying out some of that stuff, and Instagram tells you what works and what doesn't. When you get a response, you're doing something right. When you don't get a response, the people that are following you don't really like that. Well, that's Benny. He's my cat, and he likes his water bowl. So people love cats. This didn't do overly well, but it was the people that responded really well with a lot of comments. But anyway, my point
You just don't know what's good for him. This is brilliant. It's hilarious. First of all, is this the coolest cat bowl you've ever seen? I mean, you've got koi swimming in this thing. Is this really the cat bowl? Or I thought it was the dog bowl.
It's both. So
I
we have the furry 5. We've got 5 animals, 3 cats, 2 dogs, and a lot of our build was surrounded on things that we did for them. I did this post for National Cat Day. And basically what this is, it's a sink recessed into the ground, and because I thought it was stupid to put a bowl there and have to carry it across the kitchen to dump it out. So we recessed it into the ground, and we fill water, and then when you want to empty it, you just pull the plug. So we've gotten a lot of traction on something like that because it's something new, it's something different, and because Benny's cute. So, but like I said, when you're starting your Instagram journey, what works really, really well? My approach and what's working for me is completely different than somebody like Wendy Monday, who was supposed to be here, but she's in Amsterdam. Wendy has found such an amazing niche and has so many facts and brings so much information to the table. She has branded herself as an expert, especially in Germantown, but all over Nashville. So she does something completely different than what I do. The great thing is there's room for all of us. And if you really focus on what your niche is going to be, you grow within that. You don't have to be everything to everyone. And I think that's an important thing to realize, because what starts happening is you start panicking a little bit when you start getting into this. And it's like, I'm not getting all these people. I have, the 122,000 followers. I would rather have 5,000 followers that interact with me and are extremely engaged than tens of thousands who barely comment. And I think that's an important thing. It's the engagement of who you're interacting with. Those of you who are on this platform, you hear from people. And the more people look forward to your posts and respond to your posts, the more engaged you are, the better the posts do on Instagram because of the algorithm.
And so I want to speak to that, and I'm trying to not click all over like our minds want to do and see all the pretty things, but I want to leverage or showcase some of the things that you do in here, because again, you're intentional about this. And I would say there's different styles. Yours is really home focused in this build that you've done, and our architectural elements and details and finishes. Yep. And I think people certainly gravitate to you for those things, and they sort of become to expect that as a content generator. And so when you started posting before your build started, we're now seeing pictures of your build, but tell us about that engagement and how you would create that. So use of language, hashtags, tags, things like that. Tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, so for me, this actually turned out to be a bit of a diary every day. I posted, I'd find an image, I'd post, and there's a couple, let me back up. There's a couple of schools of thought of how you should create content. I have a great friend, her name is Amy Gregory. She's a real estate agent out of Phoenix, and she's been incredibly successful. We couldn't be more opposite. She does, Tuesday is her content day. She finds 7 images. She finds, and she writes 7 captions. She can mix and match. And that works for her. She's a mom. She's very focused on appealing to moms. But she is a big proponent of let's batch it and let's get it out the door. For me, my thing is it's a diary, right? It's a train of thought of what's happening that day. I very seldom plan in advance. I usually wake up, I go to the gym, I come up with an idea, and then have an image and write to it. So when I started, I knew I was designing my house. So one day maybe I was working on windows. So I'd find a home that had great windows, talk about how I wanted windows, talked about how this image related, and then talked about the person, who designed that home. So what started happening is as I started sharing other people's accounts, they would, give me a thanks, put me in stories, which then got me out to a greater audience, right? So then people started following me that way. If I had a question about something, I'd reach out on a DM and really got to know people. Because really, at the end of the day, all Instagram or Facebook or any of these social platforms is another way to I'm crying there. It is another way to interact with people and develop relationships. So the people that I have, the leads that I have coming off of Instagram right now, about 99% of my clients are new builds. So they're people who see stuff, who pull images that I'm sharing that maybe are mine, maybe are someone else's, but they know that they can come to my page to see images of something that they would like to build. In terms of hashtags, think of hashtags as a Google search. And there's a lot of schools of thought. You can have 30 hashtags. Some people are like, use all 30, it increases your chances. There's a new school of thought that you should really narrow that down to like 7 right now that are very highly targeted. So say you're showing windows, it's hashtag windows, hashtag window wall, hashtag steel windows, because it narrows things down a little bit. The other thing with hashtags is I try to keep hashtags I use under about 100,000 like 100,000 of but Teddy, what am I trying to say? Like when you type in a hashtag, you can see how many
characters.
Yeah, how many other hashtags are under that. So like something like hashtag modern farmhouse, that has like 3.5 million other posts using that hashtag. So I'll try to find something that's a little smaller. Like this image, we're talking about exterior paint. It's relating back to what I talked about in my caption. We're talking about painted brick. We're talking about white brick. We're talking about metal roof. We're talking about lights. So I'm trying to relate every hashtag I use back to that image so that if somebody is ever Googling one of those things, I come up.
Awesome. And again, we talked about creating engagement. It's such a cool, I hope you see the juxtaposition between her friend, is it Amy?
Yes.
Amy, it's much more typical realtor style, a little more like Wendy's, but adapted a little bit, very much more like, hey, I'm a realtor. Here's me momming, and here's real estate. Whereas Kelly is really an accessory to the party. She is a total facilitator. She has made architecture and design the hero of her page. Whether you know Kelly or care about Nashville, you're going to see beautiful imagery. And so that's where people would choose to follow. And then tell us about your tags as far as that, why to use them, how you've used them, and how does that build engagement? And how did it help give you a couple of perks on your house?
Yeah. So whenever you are sharing anybody's images, you need to credit them. Generally, I credit mine at the end. There are certain times where I will credit at the beginning. It's about celebrating the accounts that create the content when it's not your own content. Yeah. And it's really, really playing them up. It's really helped me because, builders around Nashville and elsewhere, know that if I share something, I am going to give them credit. It also gives them visibility, right? So now I'm sharing, Teddy, I share your post on my page. People get to see who you are. So there's a cross-pollination of everything. How it's helped for me is, people got to know who I was. And when it came time to build, I had a window company reach out to me, say, hey, we'd like to help you out with your windows. Faucets. I've been very fortunate that I have been able to leverage this into discounts for my house.
Like well into the 6 figures, friends. Like, so this is it's real business. You hear about influencers and things out there, but I mean, I can tell you my interior designer just got hired by some YouTubers that play a husband and wife that play Minecraft. And, they're building a $5 million third home. And that's how they make a enormous living. And so this is, it's just proof that with zero following that you can build this, and with intentionality. And like I said, your use of tags here, because then we go in the wild goose chase, right? So then we're going to go over to Castle Homes, and then you build a relationship. Now, Castle didn't build your home, but you've liked some of the work they're doing. And then we go into here and you can see kind of how they've built their page. But tell me here in this specifically, why did you not choose hashtags in this post? And then you did it, I think, in one of your follow-up, then you did down here. Is that intentional, or how should
It is
we be looking?
intentional. And so what I have been doing, and it's a constant experiment, right? What works, what doesn't. I put all my hashtags in the first comment. I seem to have a good reaction to that. But you'll notice also there are some times where I include it in my body. There's some school of thought that if you're over about 10,000 followers, it makes more sense to put your hashtags down in your first comment. I don't know, it's Instagram is fickle. You're always trying to chase the algorithm, which is something I do want to say about. I think we all get really, really focused on how many people are interacting. Should I buy some promotion? Should I buy some followers? Don't do it. Buying followers is the worst thing you can do, because Instagram sniffs it out and it will hurt you for it. There are people I know that have grown from 2,000 followers to 58,000 followers almost overnight. But they're purchased, and it hurts your engagement. And again, it's all about engagement. You would rather have fewer engaged followers than a whole bunch of followers and nobody really follows you. Brands look at the engagement index. How many people are reacting with you? So
let's talk about and keep those questions coming. I see let me go back to here. Let's see.
do you want me to answer some of them?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, so one thing, and can you share your suggestions on frequency of posts as to not to drive your followers away? Teddy, you and I have talked about this. I think one thing that you need to remember for a platform like Instagram to work really, really well, it's a job. It's part of your job. I mean, I spend an inordinate amount of time on Instagram.
How many, I know you've told me in the past, you spend between 2 to 4 hours a day when you were building. Are we still in that where you're like sitting down and working on, or is this like, hey, I'm having dinner, or I'm having my coffee and I'm doing it? Or you just always playing in it? Or are you working on your computer or your phone? Tell us how you do.
My wife is not real happy with me because she thought when the build was done, I wouldn't be on Instagram anymore, but I am. I'm probably about 3 to 4 hours a day. And it's not, my posting is one small part of that. I post every morning between 7 and 8 a.m. If I post at 9 or 10 a.m., I don't get as much engagement. The people that follow me know to look for me between 7 to 8 a.m. It's consistency. And that's one of the big things that I would say, be consistent. And whether that's posting every day or every other day or every third day, if you don't post, you aren't going to get engagement. So I post every morning between 7 and 8. Most days I also post again around 5 o'clock. I've been a little lazy with that, and my growth has slowed down as a result. The other thing too is, so you've got consistency. Posts in your squares are one thing, and I do keep things very focused on homes, architecture, things like that. But then you get into stories, and stories is where people get to know me as a person a little bit more. So I kind of like to think of the squares as, business in the front, and then stories are party in the back.
Love it.
That's where my personality comes out. That's where I will share a lot of times, like, hey, I'm going and looking at this house, or I've got this client doing this. But my stories are really more of like kind of a day in the life, and a place I'll share stuff about what's happening in Nashville. I'll share, that's where I'll share if I'm on a home inspection with somebody. I choose not to do that in my squares.
Okay.
Stories are scary when you haven't done them before. And the only thing I can say is just keep doing them.
So tell us about, and I just want to appeal to all people in their process. Tell us about, are these your stories here?
Those are my stories, and I need to clean them up because they aren't very concise.
No judgment.
We have a lot of them because I did cover my whole build in that. And one of the things I need to do is get a little iconography and make it look a little neater and more professional. And I just need to find the time to do it. But if you look at this, this chronicles every single part of my home build from beginning to end.
And don't think for a minute that people don't sit around and watch this stuff. If we just watch your own behaviors as you're in there, and the next thing you know, you find yourself following a guy that's, doing rescue vehicles out of the desert in Utah. And like,
Right.
This dude's built a mega business, just like rescuing people out of the sand dunes. And now he's got a whole crew. There's 5 other people that go with him on all these things, and they have drones and just people, watching all this. But the world's interested in this stuff, and it pays. So when you do a story, and then you put it into one of these areas here versus just going at the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us, we had a question here about, let's see here. Why not have a name in the handle? I think we covered that, right?
Yeah, I mean, for me, Home on a Nashville Hill existed before I was in real estate. And for me, it was a descriptor of what I was doing at the time, which was building the house. So
I think there's something fun to a fun email address. As I was talking about earlier, Sylvia, who asked that question was, Jack Miller's is jack@wipeyourfeet.net. I just will never forget that. Home on a Nashville Hill. I'll never forget that. And so Ted Pins 1, which is what mine is, probably not that catchy. And so I can appreciate that. So, Dana asked, how did you get so many followers so quickly? Also, do you have to ask permission for other people's photos, or do you just post and tag? Tell us.
So here's where being a real estate agent, you have a different level of responsibility than just a regular person posting things. Anytime I share a home that is currently for sale in the Nashville market, I probably do that a couple times a week. I reach out to the listing agent. I ask for permission. And 99.9% of the time they say absolutely, because it's free advertising for them, right?
Right.
They win because they get their listing out there. I win because my followers love seeing homes like that. So it works. So in instances like that, I will always ask permission. When it comes to an image like this one, no, I credit. You have to make sure to credit, and people will be very quick to let you know if you haven't credited them. And then you apologize and you put things out there. One of the other things I used to do a lot too is, I'd just drive around town and take pictures of people's houses and put them out there. And I learned pretty quickly that people don't like that.
Gotcha.
Because some people do, but then some people are like, why are you sharing my house? So.
No, that's a really good tip. Because we're out seeing cool things and you think, let's just post that. So privacy is something to be mindful of, but like beautiful architecture that's already being posted somewhere else.
Instagram really is all about sharing, right?
Yeah.
And that's the goal. The more time images are shared, that's what happens. But just always make sure to credit. I think there was another question about how I got so many followers.
Yes.
You know what? It was engaging with other accounts. I was super fortunate. I spent a lot of time and a lot of work, but the more I started talking to people and getting to know people, then you have an account share you, and you pick up a ton of followers that way. So that really, like I said, a lot of it's luck. A lot of it is a lot of intention and a lot of time.
Yeah. And this is a good example. Like you posted this June 3rd. It looks, one of my things I love about my job is seeing homes that take my breath away, right? Boom, 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 all the details. Most people, there it is. For more info, send me a DM. Still respectable. There's Lisa Culp Taylor. But again, nobody necessarily knows what that is. Also gave credit for photos. That serves dual purpose. 1, being respectful to who took the images and owns them. 2, exposure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And engaging their feeds, because somebody on their feed may see that you posted this. And then of course, here's where you did put hashtags inside a post.
And I think what starts to happen is people start to see you posting things like that. And at least for me, I'll get messages from people saying, hey, we're looking at moving to Nashville. We love the kinds of homes you post. Can you help us find something like that? Yeah. And that's kind of been my secret sauce to business. And it's worked out really well for me.
And you just look at the comments and engagement. Tell us about this engagement starts to happen. obviously when somebody comments, then you've created some engagement and then some conversation ensues and responsibility to respond, right? So tell us about.
Absolutely. And some of these I've responded to, some of these I don't, but my rule of thumb is I try and respond to every single comment people make. One, when you respond to comment, the algorithm lifts you up higher. Two, by me responding to people, it creates more of a conversation. I respond to every single DM as well. And I've gotten to know a lot of people that way. You know, and it's not just with real estate, but it's relationships. Like I did a story the other last night because we didn't have any hot water. I had 2 builders from Nashville call me and say, hey, listen, let me help you try to fix this. So again, it's a great way to build relationships. And for me during COVID, it was my social outlet, right? I talked with my friends on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can also do this whole thing works also on Facebook. I know some people that are wildly successful on TikTok.
Huge.
I haven't delved into that yet. But it's just finding what works for you.
Well, and I really believe there is power in starting and picking one because it's hard to be a master at them all. Most people that have had success and traction has picked one platform. If you love to be on camera and video, TikTok, killer platform, huge followings very quickly, different animal.
Mhm.
You can see with Kelly's, what I want to encourage everyone to notice here is look at how little it is about Kelly. I mean, where Kelly doesn't even put her face in her squares, as she says, right? That's up here. And there's a question about this. So talk to us about posts, reels, story, and all this other stuff we should know about.
If you are starting Instagram, do reels. I have got to get going and doing reels. I've done 1 reel, which
let's see what we've done here. You want to be on spot. So this is a video. So it's a video clip, right, that you made?
Yep. And it was my first reel. I don't know why I haven't done reels. I think I'm overwhelmed and I'm just trying to figure out how to do them. But reels is what Instagram is really using to push you up in the algorithm right now. Instagram is moving towards more video. They're moving towards more selling. You'll see a lot of people on Instagram who are incredibly successful right now who are saying, here are my Amazon picks. Here are my, you know what I mean? And showing all of that kind of stuff.
You think these people want to know what kind of floor you have? I mean, look at the questions here, right? Like so many questions about your floor. And, you know, as Instagram competes with TikTok, you know, video is where it's sort of at, but you don't have to be the hero of the video. And clearly y'all can see, I mean, don't shame yourselves that you don't have reels. I mean, she's encouraging that's a place to start.
I would start there.
Yeah, but you can also, of course, also start with just doing stories, right?
Yeah, and I think the question asks IGTV versus reels versus posts. Reels are 30 seconds, right? They're 30 seconds of you getting video content out there within your squares. That's where they live. It's a very visual medium. You see a lot of people doing, you know, DIY stuff, fast forward, home tours. I mean, there's so many great ways you could use that. IGTV is for a little longer content. I'm working on some stuff, but you don't listen to me sing there, Teddy, because that's what that is. IGTV is something I'm working on, which is longer format. So I am taking all of this stuff with my home build and turning it into, you know, 2-minute segments that will live on IGTV. Think of IGTV as Instagram's version of YouTube. And posts, you know, can be static posts. You can put video in posts. One question that I get a lot, is it better to put one image? Is it better to put multiple images in a carousel? What I have learned is I personally get fewer likes on an image that is in a carousel, but I get more engagement. So I think what happens is people see that little arrow there and they click, and then they kind of forget to like it. But if I go into all of my, you know, measurement data, I can see that more people have engaged with the post.
But again, and thank you so much, Kelly. This is so fantastic. And keep the questions coming. Look at these tags in here, friends. I mean, oh, you love these railings? Kelly shows you where to go find those right there. Now, whether, you know, Stilts Iron does a great job or not, they've got some posts here. That's great. I've got a link to their website. See some other people following them. Oh, we've got Wendy Monday. We're going to come back to her stuff. But the point is, it's just like what we do is in real estate. We're the source of the source. I mean, that's the beauty is she's just leveraging what other people are doing and talking about it and giving you accessibility.
And I get a lot of questions from people too, you know, I mean, and once people start building, hey, who would you use for railings? Who would you use for flooring? And, you know, one of our jobs as realtors is to be able to give information to help create a better customer experience.
Yep.
So, you know, for me, it's a living database for me.
Question, what app or editing tool are you using to have such clean posts with white space?
I'm sure there's something you can use. I screenshot everything and then go into edit and just drag and click and make it
crop and pretty. There you
yeah,
go.
and one thing to keep in mind when you're sharing other people's images, please do not change the crop. Please do not change the color correction. If you talk
No
with
filters.
photographers out there, they freak out when somebody changes the color correction.
Great point.
There's a lot of people, you know, I have my feed has some cohesiveness because it's a very similar style home. It's very similar style architecture. There's a lot of, you know, steel and things like that. You've got some people where everything goes through a filter and looks the same. There's benefits to that. That's just not, you know, who I am, and it's not what has worked for me.
Yep. All right.
There are a lot of scheduling apps though that people use where you can, if you are a kind of person who wants to get everything ready on a certain day of the week, there are apps where you can put everything in and it just takes care of it for you and takes it completely out of your hands. The one thing I would encourage you, if you do a scheduling app like that, make sure you go in and start engaging with the post. And timing is important. Instagram, before you post, likes you to engage for a little bit. And then once you post, they want you to engage after that. Like engaging that first hour after posting something is vital to getting the algorithm going.
Okay. Would you suggest, let's say we're out in the field, we see something cool, funny, or interesting. Do you, let's say I'm on an inspection and I want to feature something that I've seen as an inspection disaster and or something that I think is a teachable moment. What would you recommend to post? Would you video that, save it, and post later when I have time to create engagement within that hour? Or would you just Teddy Pins it, let it rip, and call it a day and never see it for 16 weeks?
No, I'd do it. I'd be thoughtful about it and be ready to engage after.
Yeah.
That you know, with that said, I think I tend to miss some moments that are a little raw and real. So there are times that I'll do that, but generally I take video and then I'll do everything all at once.
Well, and it's turned into a brand and a business, you know, versus, you know, if you look at my page, which I'm not wanting to feature this because it's probably a hot mess express and I don't use it very well, but it is, I'm not going to my page here, but you can see very little posts, lots of followers, yard sale of content, very sporadic and inconsistent. And so, but people look at it and they want to kind of know, I mean, what we know about real estate is they're interested in what we're sort of doing here.
But yeah, and here's a great example. During COVID, David Payne, his Facebook page was about cocktails, right?
Exactly.
So people went to him that was his thing. And people I waited for him to post every single day. He did that. He was consistent about it. He was intentional about the type of stuff he was posting, and it worked for him. And he got his niche of followers and clients from that. Other people, you know, if you know what's happening in Nashville, Chad Wallers, he knows Nashville better than anybody, right? He has a very different approach than I do, but his totally works for his clientele. He is an urban realtor. He shows, here's the hot places where I'm, you know, going out to eat. Here's this amazing condo view. He inserts himself into his squares very, very well. He does stories very consistently, but Chad posts all the time. You know what I mean? And if you want a condo, he comes, you know, he's top of mind.
That's right. And you can kind of see kind of how his page goes. So I think that's again another way to see how people are generating content. There's so many different methods to it. And I think it's about finding the one for you and just getting started. Like you say, start posting something. If you have to pick a theme for the week, maybe you have whatever it is, exterior Wednesdays, or it's
Sure.
modern farmhouse Mondays, or whatever.
Tile
Just
Tuesdays, things like that. And really it's about being curious and posting things that make you go, oh, wow. And hopefully other people will be inspired by that. That's how I view this.
there's a guy that's there's this dude that's just hilarious out of Toronto. And this isn't him, but I'll share with him. And he's just posting videos of him ranting about different real estate train wrecks. And it's just funny, good content. But again, that's kind of his niche with it. How do we customize these gems right here? Is it pretty easy?
Yeah, you just need to get the icon, and then if you go in there, there's a way that you can replace the first image. I think if you click into his first, if you click in, well, you'd have to do it on yours, Teddy, but you click those, and there's a way you can drag and rearrange all the content, and you just make that icon your first piece of content.
Gotcha.
But like Jared does a really great job. He's in Knoxville, hence Knoxville, Jared Cruz. He very much focuses on here's what's happening in town. He becomes the expert of Knoxville. So that's, and that's worked really well for him.
Yep. I know he was on a feature with you recently, talking about Instagram build and following and creating all of this. Do you have people or recommend, if people are overwhelmed with some of these pages? I mean, I know Canva, Canva is a great place to create these cute little quote pages and transparency. Like, you can do all this in about 5 minutes on Canva for those that are daunted for creating content. But other tips or resources for people getting started in the ways that you post, or do you use always on your phone, or do you ever use your computer? Or
for me, it's always on my phone, simply because I can take my phone, I can snap I can screen grab a pic, I can edit it, and I can put it straight up. To me, it's just a little more cumbersome on my computer. Although I can say if I was doing something with Canva, the computer is probably easier.
Yeah.
And so many people are like, well, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to wait until I figure out what to do. I'm going to wait to figure out what my niche is. Don't wait. You're better off starting to post and starting to figure out what works for you than to sit and wait for it to be perfect. And things evolve the more you do them. I think if you go back and look at what I started posting in the beginning, it's not quite what I'm posting now. Instagram has taught me what it wants to see from me. If I would go and post a picture of a condo in my squares, it wouldn't work. I wouldn't get much engagement. That's not what I'm known for.
Now, do you have a personal page that you cut loose and do the other silly stuff, or do you
I don't have time. So, I just have a personal page. I don't ever go to it. So this is pretty much it. One other question people ask a lot is, do I post the same content on Instagram and Facebook? Instagram makes it super easy to duplicate content to Facebook. Personally, I don't like that. I think people want something unique every place you are. And I don't do a lot on Facebook anymore either, but to me, Facebook is a place where I would post way more information about how Nashville is growing. I would post more about homes that I'm selling there. And I treat it very differently than I treat Instagram.
Excellent. Oh goodness, I had another question, but it'll come back to me. Let's look at Wendy Monday's page real quick, just because we're both familiar with it. And I
love Wendy's approach to
it's so beautiful. I mean, look at now this. You may ask, how does Wendy get this? It's just about timing of post to get the yellow down the middle, right?
You know what? Excuse me. I think so. I don't have that secret sauce, and it amazes me every time I see her page. And you'll see she does a really, really great balance between educating people, and that's what the yellow is. I mean, that's information your clients can use. I mean, I find myself reading her stuff.
I use
my gosh.
Yeah.
And Wendy doesn't have, she doesn't have a gazillion followers, but her followers are so engaged and they know she is going to have the latest listings in Germantown, the latest list, you know what I mean? She has such a loyal following. All of her stuff is Nashville based. And it's just, she is very smart and very intentional about it also.
And folks, you just copy and paste this. Like, so you keep this and your hashtags in a note so you can copy and paste them and give yourself quick access to those things. The way you get this is it's every, I think, third post. Is that what it is? Yeah, like one,
I
two.
believe so.
Yeah, every third post, and then you'll get this. But obviously you don't want to, it adds to the appeal when you're looking at it, right? It's another way to create branding and engagement. Her posting on like things that she's doing. She has a personal page as well, but she's telling a little bit about herself, always including her phone number. I notice you don't have your phone number in your, what do you call this? The bio or your profile?
Yeah, you know what? I don't. People still find a way to call me though.
Yeah.
Or contact me. I get a lot of DMs. I think one thing too, I remember when I was starting and I'd look at Wendy's page and it's like, well, I'm not selling that many homes.
Yep.
I don't have that many listings. I can't post stuff like that. So honestly, that's how I started sharing other people's stuff.
Yeah.
I would love to get to a point where I have that many listings that my whole feed is full of my own listings. But that's not where I am. And it's not, what I've evolved into, but for her, it's really, really worked. One other thing that I love that Wendy doesn't do, you see all these homes here, it's clean. She doesn't have sold slapped over it. She doesn't have
under contract, pending.
She does that in her stories, but on her feed, it is all very clean, very simple.
Interesting.
I think you can get the message across that you're doing a lot of transactions and that you're busy without having to shove it down people's throats.
Well, and friends, there's a reason I don't put pending signs on pending homes. Why don't I do that? Because that says, don't call me. If I tell you what this is, then there's no reason to click. Is this pending? Is this sold? Is this for sale? You want them to click. We want them to read. We want them to scroll. You gotta be intentional with how you feed them the information.
And I think one thing, like if you look at this post, one thing Wendy does really well with hers, it's not just always the outside of the house. It's something that sets that home apart from other homes. This one, it's that upper deck with a view. But the way she makes her captions, it's pretty formulaic. It's a little bit about it. It's the address, it's some information, and then it's her contact information.
And who doesn't want to be bathed in dappled light and served by a custom dumbwaiter, friends? I mean, come on.
I think the other thing people want to know too, and Teddy, you and I have talked about this a little bit, how much is too much? When are you annoying people? When are you not annoying people?
Yeah.
You know what? If it's somebody you really like, you aren't annoying them. There's certain people that I wait for their posts every single day. You have Sean Kaplan's page up. I don't know if any of you follow Sean. Sean posts a lot. He posts a lot in his squares and he posts a lot in his stories. He's got a lot of great content, but he posts all the time. Some people don't care for that and they just don't follow him, right? I don't mind it because I always get some little tidbit from Sean.
Me too. But yes, Sean, it's a good example. So do you post once a day and multiple posts, or tell us about what your method is?
Yeah, what my method is, I always, like I was saying earlier, I always post between 7 and 8 a.m. Sometimes a little later. I find that my performance suffers when I do that. I'd say probably half the time during the week, I post at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 6, because you have different audiences, right? The people that I get in the morning are very different people that are in the afternoon. So when I post between 5 and 6, I tend to get a lot of East Coast people that are kind of winding down their days. Stories, there's a couple of ways you can do this. I tend to batch all of mine and post it at once. In reality, it's probably better if you have stories happening throughout the day. Because the more frequently you post stories, the more you go up further in that little story bar that you get. And the more interaction you get.
When I post to my stories, go ahead. No, go ahead.
You can see how many people are watching your stories, and sometimes it just blows my mind to see that people are actually sitting there watching the fact that I have no hot water. But
Yep.
that's where you really can develop a deeper relationship.
I love it. When you post a story, and again, sorry if this is a 101 question, but when I post the stories, I always feel like, well, they just disappear.
Mhm.
And how do I get them to go into one of these things down here, if you will?
If you, hang on, I got to pull up my phone. So to do that in your story, there is at the bottom of your screen, if you're on your phone, there's a button that says highlight. It says Facebook highlight more. You click highlight, and then you can add to your highlights. So that's what that circle thing there is called.
Yeah.
It's called your highlights.
Thank you. Everybody's rolling their eyes at like the old dog Ted going, how do I put my thing in the thing? Many of you have your video on. This is not as nearly as fun to see all your wonderful reactions to this, but I am so grateful. Do we have any closing questions here as we wrap up with Kelly?
I mean, you know, like I said, if you're asking, you know, people are like, what can I do? Number one, be consistent, show up, do the work. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes time, right? And there's times that you're like, why am I doing this? And then you get somebody who contacts you and they're like, hey, could you show me some stuff? And it's awesome, right? Because for me, Instagram is a way to be social, to talk to people, to meet people. And if I can get some business off of it, that's a bonus. And that's where I spend my time. And that's where I spend my marketing time. So be consistent. To be you. People want to know who you are. And again, this is a relationship business. So you're creating relationships and you want people to get to know who you are. And figure out what your niche is, right? If you're a mom, the number of moms you could get, you know, that are looking for a home, that's great. I'm not a mom. So for me, I'm not going to go after other moms in the carpool line. I know somebody who has cystic fibrosis, and he's developed a great following among other people who have, CF. And it's been a really great way for him, to connect with people. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You just need to really engage a small piece of the pie.
And be intentional with what it is you want to talk about, because then they're going to want to talk about that. So like, I wouldn't put yourself, as I talked about, or a joke in the name of this class, be you, everybody else is taken. Kelly has used her inexperience and now experience to help others. And she has 99% of her clients are building new builds. For better or worse, there's pros and cons to that nightmare. But like, that's going to create your following, right? So like, if it's moms or dogs or East Nashville or those things, Emily does a beautiful job of leveraging.
Emily does a fantastic job.
Like, so it's like, who she is. Like, you just get a vibe of like who Emily is and her spirit. And like, some of it's real and raw, and other it's like fun and playful and things to do. I mean, she just does a nice sampling. So if you're our own Emily Warner, if you want to follow her stuff, she does a great job of sharing those things. Emily, do you want to share any tips from your adventures in Insta? Put her on the spot here.
Hi,
Emily,
guys.
you're killing it. I love seeing your stuff.
She's the best.
Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate that. Well, what Kelly said in the very early part of the class was deciding on a name. And Teddy, I know I agonized the same with you when I started, because I've been nicknamed Warner Blaster since I was 19 years old, and now I'm 35. So am I still Warner Blaster or not? So
yes,
I just already had so many people there, not so many, but people who know me, the right people, like Kelly was saying. And so I just stuck it there, and I try to be engaged with other people, other realtors, and just keep it as positive as I can most of the time, as long as politics are not too crazy. Lots of dogs.
And you do a great job of sharing, just things that you're into and doing, that you're not drinking, you're doing houses, you're outdoors, your dogs, just things that are going on in your life. People really value and appreciate, I think, that authenticity.
But I think Emily just brought up a really good point. This is not about posting and ghosting. It's about talking and commenting on other people's stuff. again, it's about creating relationships. So it's taking the time. I mean, I spend, a good chunk of my time is interacting with other people, looking at other posts, seeing what other people, and it's not just heart or cool. It's taking the time to thoughtfully comment.
Yeah.
You're so right. And I've also found, and this I don't like, but pictures of my face do better than other posts.
Do they really?
And
That's awesome.
it takes me back to the music business because I always hated merch that was face tees, is what we called it, with the artist's face on it. But those always sold the most at every artist merch table. So maybe just know that sales tactic, that pictures of you, if people know you and love you and trust you, they're going to be happy to see your face. So I don't feel very comfortable doing that, but I've stepped out of that a little bit because I need to.
And you got to get over ourselves, right? Like we got
Yeah.
to be willing to put ourselves on camera and just be real. I don't look the way I want to look. There's many things, or sound. I certainly don't love hearing myself again, but I find the most views and engagement are people where they're just seeing you in places of things they're into. I saw in here a question Sylvia asked regarding Wendy's visuals. Would she need to always post 3 at the same time to keep that look? No, Sylvia, just every third post has to be the one that you want if you want it to create that look. Wendy's way more intentional than some of the rest of us about like the beauty of the brand, right? I mean, you look at her bio and then you look at her website, like
Wendy is a master class in branding.
She is a master brander. And you can see all these homes she sold. And then, what happens to me sometimes, I start to look at all this and go, oh gosh, I go to the bottom. How do I create a site like this? And then I've got, 70 other things. The wheels fall off the bus. And the next thing I know, 2 years passes by and I still feel insecure that I don't have what she has. And I'll tell you, I've gotten much happier and much more success the quicker I let go of all that stuff and recognize you're not with a better company that's more willing to help you and tell you how to do it and share the people and the resources and the things. So if you something they're doing you love, tell them about it, ask them how they're doing it, and I know will be happy to share. And that is what I'm so grateful for you all.
And I think that's a great way to go out. Instagram, while it's wonderful, it can also be an incredibly it can be a place where you can start to feel bad about yourself real fast if you're constantly comparing.
Yep.
As hard as it is, don't compare. Figure out what works for you. You do you, and that's what makes you different. It's where you start to go into problems is when you're trying to do what everyone else is doing.
And Wendy and I talked about this, and I'm not shy to bring this up. I mean, even Chad, I finally had to unfollow Chad Woolers. Okay, this guy's my buddy of a long time, but I got so tired of seeing this hot piece of tail just walking around in every cool ass thing and feeling like, I mean, really, give it a break. But it works for him. Who's got the problem? I got the problem. Like, I need to let that go and recognize it's okay to unfollow people that you're finding are striking something in you. If it's good, healthy competition, or it's finding ways to help you further your business, great. If it's not, unfollow them. You don't have to see these folks' content if it's constantly making you feel like you're not enough. And that goes for so many things in this. So be cautious and good to yourself in this, and that have fun with this, enjoy this. If you hate it, don't feel like you have to make this your business. There's plenty of realtors with great success that don't do social media, friends.
Yep.
There's other ways. Jamie Helms sends out a printed newsletter, and so does David Payne, that has wild success. You don't have to be something you're not, but don't be afraid to try and explore and play in it a little bit. And I think you might find there's a whole network of people that are interested in what you're talking about and are dealing with some of the same anxieties and apprehensions. Thank you.
Wrap up.
Oh, you like it? Next on Oprah. Hey, thanks for Kelly and Emily and Wendy in Afar, and Chad for everything he does too. I mean that with great adornment and success. That man has got a masterful business selling luxury condos. Like, it is such a beautiful business. But just know, like, nobody knows if you're following them or not, per se. Like, they don't really care. Okay, follow, unfollow, try on new things. Do you ever feel like you're following too many people, or is it hard to keep up? Are you more selective with who Or do you just open trails on Insta?
You know what? I've become more selective of who I'm following.
Yeah.
Again, schools of thought that you should be following under 1,800 people, stuff like that. I follow people whose stuff interests me, right?
Yep.
And it changes.
Yep.
Most of my stuff is very home focused. But if it's something that's of interest to me, I'm not afraid to start following somebody. And if it's something that doesn't interest me anymore, I get rid of it.
Yep. I love it. Well, you're amazing. We appreciate you and everyone in our village family so much. Thank you. Have a beautiful day. And I know everyone can reach out to Kelly if you have further questions, or you could DM her.
Please do.
And please send a plumber and a structural engineer. She could use it. I'm just kidding.
Oh, God.
It's
All
all
right.
good. It's all good. We're here to help each other. Thanks again, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.